Hello and welcome to the Right Women Network. This is the August Salon, and our guest today is Ninya with Teal Butterfly Press. We want to thank Ninya for being here. She's going to talk to us a little bit today about Shopify. I'm going to put her, let me see if I can do the little chat thing. I'm going to put her web address into the chat right here, so that you can find her online. She writes under the names Ninya, just Ninya, like Madonna or Cher, and as Blair Bryan. She's published a memoir, Scotland with a Stranger, which I'm definitely going to have to read. She describes it as an eat, pray, love kind of, but in Scotland journey. And she's also written books regarding self-help, dating advice, and contemporary women's fiction. She offers a package as well for helping you set up your own Shopify. So, for example, if you come away from this and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to sell my books from my website, and you just feel overwhelmed by that, she has packages online that you can hire her to help you set up your Shopify store. That being said, I want to just touch real quick on the fact that a few weeks ago, there was a little bit of Shopify drama online. The CEO let go 10% of the workforce without reducing his income or taking any hits himself, which, ethically, we would prefer that CEOs behave a little bit more ethically, but, we're not in control of that. But that being said, we're moving on with this Shopify. She's found it to be a great product. And I don't think it's going anywhere because there really isn't another platform exactly like it out there, and it does help us. It helps you to liberate yourself from other places that you might have to sell your books through another party. And we all know there's big places and little places you can do that. But this product gives you control over selling from your own website and your own platform, your own products. And if you go to her website, maybe not now, but after the discussion, you can see she has, it looks lovely. It's set up so that you can read a little bit of a sneak peek of each of the books, which I'm sure she'll go over. The ways you want to set up, and that is pretty much it. I'm gonna turn it on over to, did I get everything? Did I hit it all?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. All right. So thank you so much, Ninya, for being here. We appreciate it. And now teach us all about Shopify.
Shopify. All right. Well, thanks, Heather, for that introduction. I'm really excited to be with you guys today because I feel like this is a really great way to start earning more money with your writing. So just to give you a little bit of background, so my journey with Shopify started about 10 years ago, and I was a owner of a business that sold Photoshop templates and education programs on Shopify, and so that's kind of how I started there. And I worked within that business. I ended up selling it and getting out of that. And then I decided around 40, I decided I was going to just follow my bliss and go after what I really wanted, which was to write books. And so that's kind of what set me on this path. And I probably did what all of you guys have done, where you go and you join groups on Facebook and you try to find information. And at that point, when I started writing, which was almost 3 years ago, I'm coming up on my 3rd year publishing anniversary. So I started to gather information, and nobody was really using Shopify. And I didn't really feel like it was the direction to go at the time that I started. I kind of wanted to, get some books out there and see if it was worth it before I took that leap. So there's a little bit of a, bump in the middle where I didn't do anything with Shopify. And then I came back around and began to use it in my writing business. So I have a little presentation that Heather is going to be kind enough to share with you later. So that's something that you'll want to check the group for to make sure that you do it. The first thing I want to do is tell you that you need to have a little bit of, whenever someone gives you advice, like, you want to take it with a grain of salt. And it's really tough sometimes to apply someone's exact steps and exact philosophies and have them translate to your genre. So you definitely want to evaluate everything that you hear, make sure it works, maybe do some testing. And it's always about test, test, test. You definitely need to test everything. Don't blindly accept advice. I've kind of learned a lot of lessons the hard way, and I'm going to be 100% transparent with you guys. And really give you a glimmer and a glimpse inside the journey I've taken. I have been a little maybe hard-headed and stubborn, thinking that I could go a certain direction, and you'll see in a few slides that maybe that wasn't the best way to go. But I did learn a lot of lessons, and I'm hoping to save you guys some time as well with that. So my one word of caution is, if a book doesn't sell, and this is something that I've learned, a new cover, a new blurb probably aren't going to move the needle in any kind of measurable way. And so that's one lesson that I learned. So I learned very hard over the last 3 years, move on and write the next book. That's one of the hardest lessons to learn, that some books never find their legs. Some books will struggle for years in obscurity and then find the spotlight, and some are going to kill it right out of the gate. So it's really hard as a business person to see people, and myself included, when I say people, I mean me as well, pouring money into projects that are unprofitable. And I really want to caution you on that. All right, let me move to my next slide. So I want to kind of talk through the timeline of the publishing mistakes. So in May of 2020, that's when I launched my Shopify store. And my most popular book to date is called Scotland with a Stranger. Heather told you a little bit about that, but it's a nonfiction travel memoir that kind of was inspired by the book Eat, Pray, Love. And so it takes you on a crazy journey with a woman that I met through a Facebook group, and we went to Scotland for 2 weeks. And it is a crazy journey that is really almost impossible to believe. So that was like what I would consider my breakout hit. And instead of continuing and writing another one, as we all know that series are going to be better sellers than, just standalone books, I decided, oh, well, my next book's going to be a self-help dating book. I'm going to do that for a while. And so that, of course, tanked. I couldn't get anyone to read it, no matter how many times I published or I did ads on Facebook and all of that. It was just the toughest slog. I had covers redesigned. I wrote blurbs over and over. It's a great book, but no one's going to read it. And so the hardest lesson for me to learn was to just move on and move on to something else. And so shortly before, though, I published Scotland with a Stranger, my publishing journey took another crazy turn, and I decided to write serials. And I did erotic serials for a while. And then when I would get 4 of them together, I would publish them as a paperback. That was another non-starter, so I was making all of these terrible mistakes. I was going against all of the things that people told me in these groups. And I still was hard-headed and stubborn, and I still wanted to continue. So instead of stopping to do that, I decided, oh, what would be really great is a women's fiction serial. Another failed problem. So I started to rack up problem after problem with the publishing side. And I decided that I wanted to move forward and write women's fiction books, just standalone. And that's where my heart is. That's what I like to read. And I felt like if I was, when you write a book, you're reading it literally like 10,000 times. So you want it to be something that you enjoy, or something that you have like a connection to. And those are the type of books that really speak to me. So I started writing those, and I want to go back to my slides here. I wish you guys could see them, but it'll just be, it'll be a little easier here. So in 2020 of May, I launched my Shopify store. My big seller was Scotland with a Stranger. And about 20% of my income has come from my Shopify store. So if there's ever any doubt in your mind whether this is a valuable use of your time, it absolutely is. But you have to find those, you have to kind of follow those same rules. The series works better when you're trying to advertise and you're an unknown author. And I didn't follow those rules, and I'm starting to pay that price. But now I'm gonna be releasing my second travel memoir, because COVID kind of got in the way of releasing anything. So it's coming 3 years after the first memoir, and I'm releasing it next January. So I'm slowly getting there. I've stubbed my head a lot. It's been a long process of accepting what the rules are and then trying to make them work for me. So let me just move forward here just a little. So what this boils down to is when you're genre hopping, I did it myself. I don't recommend it. But if you're going to be doing this, Shopify is great, because what happened was I had 2 different pen names. I had all of these non-related books that went to non-related audiences. There would be some crossover, but for the most part, you know, you're not going to have as much crossover as you think you will. So when you have one Shopify store, it allows you to have one kind of umbrella for all of your pen names. And then underneath your Shopify store, you can have, it's considered a bookstore, so you can have all of your artists. And so if you go to my store, you'll see that you'll have books by Ninya, books by Blair, Bryan, and then I have Velvet Guild, which is the erotic series that's on its kind of own section, because, you know, the crossover, I don't want to offend readers. I don't want there to be any weird review things that happen. So it just really puts the kibosh on that. But it also enabled me to have one social presence with the flexibility to grow. So before I started the Teal Butterfly Press Shopify store, I had websites that were blairbryan.com, and I had Ninya.us, and I had velvetguild.com. And it started to get just really unwieldy when you're talking about maintaining all of those social profiles and posting, and it just created like 3 times the amount of work. And so if you're going to genre hop like that, definitely have one store and then have your pen names as different groups underneath that store. And it just cuts down on a lot of it. So if you go to any of my social profiles, whether Instagram or Facebook, you're going to see me talk about all these different books. And you don't have to be as forthcoming with your visitors that all of these people are the same people if you want to keep that secret. I have gone the opposite way, and I've been out there loud and proud with all of my pen names. You know, that another hard lesson I learned was don't write erotica with your real name. You know, like, hello, that's the 101. That's really dumb. But, you know, now it lives forever under my name. So I've got to be okay with it. So that's just one way to think about it. But if you have one place to go to, then you have, you know, it just makes it so much easier from a posting standpoint. And that's really been a big part of it. So I did learn I did a lot of bad things, the serials, the standalones, the sequels, having almost 3 years in between. That has gotten me to this place where I was semi-successful, but I really am plotting now to have record growth in the next few years. And putting all these steps in place and having the Shopify store ready gets all of the kind of the ducks in a row, so that when I'm ready to really explode out there, it's all done and it's ready to go for me. Let me just move forward here. So when I was evaluating selling on my own, there were only really 2 options were Shopify, and then WooCommerce was talked a bit about in the groups. And when I was evaluating WooCommerce, it was really clunky for me. It was really tough to kind of keep all of the parts together. And it was frustrating to sync your products and try to have a really good experience for your customer. And I thought, if I'm going to be fighting my way through setting it up, I wonder what kind of experience the customer is going to have. And so it was really easy for me to just really quickly not put any effort into WooCommerce. I felt like Shopify, you know, if you have a lot of coding experience, then absolutely WooCommerce could work for you. But I don't have any of that, and I did not want to learn it. I think it's a skill set that is very much in demand, but it's just not something that I want to spend a lot of time learning. So I knew that right out of the gate, since I had the background in Shopify, that I knew that I could get it to look really great. I could get it to work the way I wanted it to. It could look clean and simple. And so I decided to go that route and haven't really looked back. So another question people ask me a lot is, do you need a website and Shopify? And my answer is no. I do not have separate websites and Shopify. I don't have a Blair Bryan website and a Shopify platform. I just have the one. And Shopify allows me to do blogging. It allows me to do everything that I can do on a just a regular website. And so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. When you think about it, you really want your customer to go to your store and spend money. I mean, that's really your end goal, is you want them to buy books. So why would you add more steps for them to kind of more hoops for them to jump through to make that possible? And so by having the one place for them to go, it just makes it a lot easier. And so I didn't start out that way though. I initially started out with Divi. I don't know if anybody's using Divi right now, but Divi I went all in on it because I did some research, and on a lot of the groups, it was the most talked about, the most flexible. And I was able to, put together a really good looking website. And, for the first probably 6 or 8 months, it worked great. I was happy with it. But then I started to do some advertising on Facebook. And what happened was I was looking at my analytics and I noticed that the page loads were taking a long time. And so that was like the first kind of nail in the coffin for me with Divi and with, a WordPress website to begin with. So I started doing some more research, and my day job, I actually work for an IT company. I started working there, and before I started the job, they started doing a website redesign and used Divi on it as well. And this company has a much bigger budget than I do on my publishing company. And I always thought Divi had a problem. It's very bloated, has a lot of like extra JavaScript in it. And because it does a lot of fade-ins and, special effects, it really slows down the speed of your site. And that's really a crucial metric. And we'll talk more about that later. But it's something that you really have to keep in mind. And so that was kind of the tipping point for me, is when we sat down with a very highly compensated web developer, and he confirmed that Divi was not the way to go, that it was going to take thousands of dollars of custom coding work to get it to the speed that it needed to be. Then I just gave up on that and went full speed ahead with Shopify. So one question people will ask, well, if I've been doing this for 10 years or, a long time, and I have all of these posts that I have on my old website, I don't want to have to move all of that over. And that is a totally legitimate, complaint and, worry and concern. My thing that I would like people to know though is how often are you updating that theme that you're using for your WordPress website? If most people would be using WordPress if they weren't using Shopify. So if you're not constantly updating your WordPress, if you're not, staying on top of all those things that need to happen, you're going to run into problems. And you want to kind of correct those before it's another 10 years down the road. So I would make it easy on yourself and have one store, one website, one thing to worry about, one thing to update, one thing to take care of, instead of having multiple avenues to worry about. But that's just me, and I like to keep things simple. And it's really not that difficult to take if you have a lot of blog posts or, whatever is holding you back to that WordPress website, it really doesn't take very much time to kind of copy all of that into your new blog on Shopify. So it's something to really consider. So you just have the one. So I did move to Shopify because Divi was slow. WordPress is free, but when you do some speed tests, and you can there's a Google tool that you can use for that, I was finding that it gave me a D grade, which we all know is terrible. And when you're doing any kind of advertising, you have a second to grab someone's attention. And if it takes 4 seconds for your page to load, you're just burning money. You're not going to get any results from that. And so I would encourage anyone that is kind of seeing some of that happen to speed test. Is one of the first things that I always think of when I'm hearing results like that. I love Shopify's blogging capabilities, but I also do another thing. If I have a book that's a breakout hit, I will buy the domain And then I will take that domain and send it right to my Shopify store. So when I saw that Scotland with a Stranger was doing well, I think it sold like 7,000 copies. I bought the domain, and now it's easy for people to say scotlandwithastranger.com. It's, kind of rolls off the tongue. It's easy to put into an ad. And it also protects that kind of intellectual property. And it takes that internet real estate, because someone else could come scoop it up if I hadn't done that, and, do whatever they want with Scotland with a Stranger. So if you have a hit or you have a series that is doing well, it's not the worst thing to grab that domain, because that's going to have the biggest kind of SEO juice. And that's going to be one of the biggest kind of feathers in your cap when you go to try to get that free traffic. All right. So I wish you could see this. You'll have to see this in the slides. But what you really need to get started with Shopify is you need a domain. And you can either use a new domain, you can buy a new domain, and you can do that through Shopify, or you can do that through any domain company, GoDaddy, Google, any of those places where you can buy a domain. They all will work with Shopify. Or you can take an existing domain and you can point it to your Shopify store. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. The next thing you're going to need is a book delivery service. And so for ebooks, I use BookFunnel. And I believe PayHip's another option. I don't have any experience with PayHip. I have always been a fan of BookFunnel, and just recently started into the audiobook delivery, and that has been really kind of seamless. They've been very responsive. I had a couple weird things happen with delivery, and I mean, they're literally within an hour, they're working on it. So that has been really, really amazing. Then the next thing you want to have is a shipping plan. So you're going to have books that you want to ship. So I have obviously ebooks that I sell and audiobooks that are all digital delivery. But I also do sell quite a few paperbacks. I think I might be a little bit of an anomaly, but I sell more paperbacks, both on all the retailers than I do ebooks. And I don't know if it's maybe the genre that I write in. That's probably it, because my readers are older, it's women's fiction. So, they're just an older reader and they like to have that book in hand. So you have to have a way to ship the books out. I like to keep things separate and easy. So I always tell people to set up a separate bank account and then just have all of those retailers and Shopify continually, make deposits into that bank account. So it just makes it easy at the end of the year when you have to do taxes. And then when you see the titles or the slides that I'm going to send, I also tell you that you need a Gothic book shipping elf, which is my daughter. And Jay gathers all my books up and they take them to the mailbox after I've used my app to get them ready to print. And she gets paid in flaming hot Cheetos, which, that's a pretty good deal, I think, for me. So yeah, you definitely need those few things, and it's not very much to get started. So there's some real barriers to direct ordering. And the biggest one is it's outside of your reader's preferred store experience. So there's that trust that you have to kind of build. And there's obviously there's good and bad things to that. So when someone buys a book, I don't know if any of you have familiarity with this, it's not as seamless as when they buy one from, let's say, from their Kindle. It doesn't just automatically go there. You have to take a few more steps. And so you're side loading ebooks on Kindle, and depending on who your audience is, they might not be as technology, savvy as what you think they would be, especially in women's fiction. It's an older audience. Sometimes they get a little caught up and, don't know how to do that. So it is a legitimate barrier to consider. It's just something to think about. Another barrier is collecting and filing for taxes and VAT if you are shipping international. That is something that, when you sell your books direct, obviously the government wants to get their taxes. And so you've got to keep track of that. And there's some really great tools inside of Shopify that we'll talk about here in a minute that make that easy for you. I would not let that be anything that scares you off or makes you nervous. because it's very manageable and you can do that really, really simply. Another thing is you're going to have an inventory on hand to ship. So, you're going to have to be able to like order books, keep them in stock, and to be able to ship them out in a, regularly in a pretty small amount of time. I usually try to keep 10 of each of my titles in hand, and I just continually reorder from Amazon. And that's where I get my books that I ship. So there's obviously the barriers to having someone buy direct from you, but you can overcome those barriers really easily if you provide more value. So if you go to my site, you're going to see, I proudly on every page, it's on the banner, it says it's the only source for autographed paperbacks. And that's the truth. I don't, if they want an autographed paperback, they need to buy it on the site. The other perk that I provide is I kind of got the idea from when Amazon used to give you the ebook copy with the paperback. I thought that made perfect sense. And as a reader, I would kind of like that opportunity. And so I give the ebook free with the purchase of any of my paperbacks. I'm also giving early access to a new book. So if I have a new title coming out and the release date is January 1st of 2023, then I'll usually have it come out at least a couple weeks ahead of time for those pre-orders. So they get it, they're the first ones to get it in their hands. The other great thing to think about is pre-orders are great on your own website. There's a couple awesome reasons why. Number one, you're paid immediately. So you don't have to wait until the book comes out. It's an ongoing, when the book is purchased, the money comes into your account right away. Obviously you keep track of that. And then when the books are available, then you ship them out. And this really protects you from, I don't know if many of you have, I've heard horror stories where people have lost like 3,000 pre-orders on Amazon. That's terrifying. Some of them, I've heard them get them back, and most of the time, it's like, oops, sorry, and that is really disheartening. I mean, it's tough to make it as a independent author, and we're hustling for each one of those sales, and to lose that many would just, I would take to my bed with cookie dough for like a week. Like it would not be good. So this really protects you from that. You don't have to worry about that. The other thing that it's really great for is if you need to delay a release, you don't lose your pre-order status. So if you only have pre-orders on your own website, then you don't have to worry about any of Amazon's rules or Amazon losing your pre-orders. The other thing that's really great about selling your books direct, and this is getting more and more prevalent, is that people really want to support an artist that they love. And it's only going to get better with NFTs and Web 3.0. It's going to get better and better and better for creators. They love, getting in on the ground floor. They love supporting that underdog. It's a huge thing, and they'll often pay more money for that. So that's just something to really consider. Now, I have probably taken a different tack than most authors. I started with my paperbacks quite a bit higher on my website, because to me, when you autograph a paperback, it has a higher perceived value. So that's just one more thing to consider. If you want to move more, obviously pricing you're going to want to hit that sweet spot between pricing and, the orders. But I feel like there is that wiggle room to charge $1 or $2 more if it comes autographed by the author. So just something to consider. So I have a background, pretty extensive background in graphic design and photography. That's kind of where I started. That's my career and my college degrees in photography and graphic design. And so what you really need is a branded store that's highly functional. That's your goal. That's what you're shooting towards. So whatever your genre is, you want to stick to consistency. And you want to make sure your fonts and your colors and everything coordinates and continues to reinforce your brand. So if you go to like any of my social media profiles, it's teal butterfly press, just because it's my favorite color, and I love butterflies because they're transformative, and I feel like a lot of my stories are representative of that. And so I have teal is very predominant, and I use a lime green color, and it's, you know, those two colors are very contrasty, and it's really easy in a really small form, like when you get to your favicons and that kind of thing, for it to be readable. And so those are things to think about. You know, you don't want to use a multitude of fonts because you want to create that one consistent look. So when someone sees a book that you've written, it coordinates with your others, and they think, oh, if I love this, then I'm probably going to love this too. And it's just continuing to reinforce that style. And so what I use for graphics, I'm using 3D cover generator, and that is just a free, it's a website, I think. I'll try and include that website information with Heather when I send the slides over. But that has been a really great resource, because if you go to my Shopify store, I have all of my books showing, you know, as digital ebooks and then also as paperbacks. And that allows me to take my flat cover art and then automatically create these 3D cover looks to it. And it looks super professional. There are a lot of different options. So if you don't love the one that I have in my store, they even have one that shows on a phone. I don't know why anyone would want to read on a phone, because that's so hard on your eyes. But, you know, if you want to really show the different ways that people can consume your content, that's definitely the way to go. The other thing that I can't live without is Canva Pro. And I think, honestly, some other programs that are thrown around, you know, with graphics are BookBrush is another one that people like. And I felt like it was really limiting. I did try it. It does have some nice features, and it might be enough for most people. I really wanted to customize things. And with the Canva Pro subscription, the thing that's really great about it is they have pre-made templates, and you'll have to look into the slides to see a few of those. But I use them to make little 4 or 5 second videos that I use for my Facebook ads. I use them to create reviews. They have a very extensive stock photography catalog that you can use. You know, I wouldn't recommend creating covers with that, because I feel like covers really need to be done by a professional. But when you're talking about graphics and things that you use for ads, there's some really great tools in Canva Pro. And, you know, when you see the slides that I made for this presentation, I recently found out you could do presentations with it too. I mean, it's incredible. It's just a really great tool that I don't think I could live without. I mean, and I think it's, I'll get into that in another slide, but it's really affordable for what you get with the capabilities you have with that. And then one other little tidbit I want to share with you, and you're obviously test. I never want you to take anything I say as the absolute gospel truth. I want you to go and do your own testing. But I found that saturating colors on the images that I use for ads, whether it's my book cover or just a stock photo, I get increased click-throughs on it. And that's been really one great little secret that I learned. So I use, like I said, Canva Pro. I use it for stills, for videos. I use it for all my social posts. You can even schedule through Canva Pro. I typically don't do that. I've always heard that if you post not with a scheduler, that you get better reach on all the social profiles. And my career actually right now, currently, I work for an IT company and I do marketing with them. And so I have a really extensive background in social media and in the graphic part of it. And that is what I have found to be true for a very long time. If you post, it's just easier to post on all your social profiles with the appropriate hashtags, mixing them up, and never keeping them all the same. And it just makes it a lot easier. So I want to talk about speed. And one of the big reasons I went to Shopify was speed is so important. And I feel like there's a lot of people that are not even considering speed. especially even if they're in the Shopify world, they're not considering it enough. And I learned that the hard way with Divi. It was very slow. It was taking 4, sometimes 5 seconds to load a page. And that is out of the most important things for SEO. Site speed is in the top 5. So if your speed is in the toilet, you are not going to get those natural organic traffic that, Google overlooks you, and it's detrimental to your score. So you definitely want to do that. When I first started with Shopify, I felt the need to be extra. And so I went out and I started doing some research because there's a bunch of Shopify themes. When you decide to go with Shopify, then the next thing that you need to think about after you get your domain is, I need to, what theme do I want to pick? And so I tested this. So I wanted it to be, just the perfect bookshop experience. So I found a theme called Bookshop, and I was in love with it. I loved that it had the review capability. It had everything kind of built in. It looked really clean and great. And so I went ahead with it. And then again, the speed test killed it. It was almost as bad as Divi. And so I was getting frustrated. And what I decided to do was I had put so much work into the Shopify bookshop theme that I started getting quotes to have a speed expert make my store faster. And it just got to be so crazy expensive. And I decided not to go that route for a couple of reasons. So I highly recommend that you stick with one of the free Shopify themes that are included that you can pick from. It's very limited selection. That's very true. But you can do a lot with graphics to make your store, look more custom and more your style and hit your genre better. But there's a couple reasons why you want to avoid customs. Is when you hire an expert to custom code anything in your store, anytime you update that theme, it breaks your store. And so you've got to then contact the expert again and have him do more custom work, and you pay more money. And it just becomes this never-ending money pit. So my advice is to pick a free theme and avoid the customs completely. And you definitely want to speed test your site many times. You want to test it with Google Page Speed Tester, or there's another website that is used extensively in the SEO community. It's GT Metrics. And so both of those will give you kind of GT Metrics will give you like a letter grade, and you'll be able to tell right away if your page is slow or if it's doing well. So you really want to think about mobile first, because Google does. You kind of want to play, you have to play their game kind of at their mercy. So you need to know how your theme does on mobile. And that is, I would guess it would be very much the same for anyone that had a bookstore that was selling to the public. But if you dig into analytics, you're going to be able to see how many people visit your store on their laptop or computer, how many are looking at it on a tablet, or how many are looking at it on mobile. And I would guess that probably 70% of your traffic in a Shopify store is mobile. And so that's something to really focus on and make sure that it's fast enough. And according to what Google's, benchmarks are. And some themes are just really slow out of the box. I would really recommend that you look for a Shopify 3.0 theme. And there's a ton more options if you go Shopify 2, but every time there's an update, it's better. It's better for security. It's better for speed. It's better for bugs. And so I would highly recommend that you look for Shopify 3.0. Make sure it says that on whatever theme you choose. And it's very true. You're going to have to, there's a few things you're going to have to compromise on. If you look at my store, there's one thing that burns me that I wish I could change, and I can't unless I get a coder involved. And I'm really against that. I feel like if the font adjusted, if it could be bigger, I would be so much happier, because, the people that are reading the lines on my store are an older audience. And so it's a little bit harder for them to read that smaller type. And for the theme that I have right now, I have searched and searched and searched for a solution, and there just isn't one. And I keep putting in, some feature requests, but they still just haven't gotten it yet. So if it's Shopify 3.0, that's the way to go. So what you're really going to want to, with your speed test, you want to get it under 2 seconds. If it's anything over 2 seconds, then you're really going to struggle to get any kind of organic traffic to your store. So that's a real important benchmark to remember. And you always want to sacrifice pretty for speed. So for instance, the website that they did for the information technology company that I work for, it was gorgeous. It was just really slow, and it just didn't really, do what it needed to do. So it didn't matter how pretty it was if it takes 4 seconds for the page to load and no one sticks around to see it. And it's even more frustrating when you're paying to send traffic there and your store page is just blank and won't load. So those are really important things that you need to focus on. So the next consideration, you have your store, right? You have your domain, you have your store theme. The next thing that you're really going to want to think about is apps. And apps are really great. They can do a lot of things behind the scenes. They can automate things. They can make life really easy for you. But it's not always a good thing. So you really need to think about it and only add the apps that you think you need, because they can slow things down and affect the performance greatly. So it's really important to consider that when you're adding apps. Don't just add them willy-nilly. Really think about why you need it, if it's imperative to have, and again, every time we add an app, you're going to speed test. So you're going to spend a lot of time on those 2 speed test websites, when you're making some adjustments to your theme. But these are the ones that I really like. So the first one is Judge Me, and that is a reviewing app, and it's so far been really great. I've only had it on my site, I want to say a little over 6 weeks, maybe. I first heard about this when I was listening to, I think it's Katie Cross was the first Shopify person that I listened to. And I listen to stuff like this all the time. I always want to see, if there's any little nugget of information that can make my life better. So that was one that I definitely got from her. So the Judge Me app is really great. It allows you to, gather those reviews. I even brought in all the text reviews from my current Amazon reviews and put them on the store as well. But there's one caveat. So anytime you update your theme, which happens quite a bit, they always will issue, it's right now, I think I'm on 6.0.2, and in a couple of weeks, they'll release 6.0.5, and I'll have to update to that. And every time you update it, it's very important that you do. You don't want to put those updates off, because they fix bugs. They often are security updates that you want to make sure that you take advantage of. And, there's a lot of little things that happen in the code behind the scenes. So you always want to keep that most updated version of your theme happening. But what happens, and this is another thing you have to pay attention to, is when you update your theme, sometimes it'll completely either remove or uninstall an app. And so I updated my theme just recently and I lost all my reviews. And so I had to go back and reinstall Judge Me, which wasn't a problem. It wasn't like I lost all my reviews. They're all still there. So it was easy to get that restored, but it was something that, I had updated the theme, I think on Tuesday, and I didn't catch it till a Thursday. So there are days where, potential visitors went to my site and there weren't any reviews there. And that's tough, because we all know reviews sell books. So we want to have those visible. And another great app that Katie talked about was Frequently Bought Together. And I did download that, put that on my store. It wasn't super effective for me. I don't think I have enough series. I don't have any series, actually. Well, I have one that's 2 books, but most of my books are standalones. And so it was a little bit tougher sell with that. But I know, and if you're just stepping into the Shopify world, you definitely want to see if it's still free. They were offering for new stores that installed the app lifetime free access, which that's a crazy good deal. I've never heard anything like that. And, I was stunned to do that. So you definitely want to take a look at that. Another app that I can't live without is called Pirate Ship. And that is the app that I use to do all of my media mail. I pay for my shipping and I print the labels. And then all I have to do is have my Gothic book elf take my books to the post office. There's no standing in line. There's no, waiting around for anything. It's just, you literally do it just from your printer at home. And it has made life so easy. I think I can ship out 50 books in maybe 15 minutes because it just batch prints everything and you just slap them on there and you're good to go. And then the last one that I would recommend is the Facebook or Instagram Shops app. That's another free app, and Pirate Ship is free as well. You just pay for your postage as you use it. And you want to make sure, one last caveat for the Pirate Ship is you want to make sure that you set it up for media mail. That is going to be your lowest shipping. You can do all kinds of shipping on Pirate Ship, but media mail is how I ship all of my books. And I want to say it costs about $3.50 for me to ship a book to a customer in the United States. Okay, so the reason you want to do Shopify is because you want to make the money, right? So I would suggest enabling every payment gateway possible except for PayPal, and that is just a personal preference. I just don't like PayPal. If you like them, that's okay. But there is something that some people might, a little maybe unknown fact about PayPal, is they also have a micropayments option. And so you get less fees associated with that on smaller totals. So if you're selling regularly 99-cent books, it might be worth looking into setting up a micropayment PayPal account. So that might be a consideration. I don't sell anything for 99 cents ever. I feel like if I'm going to spend any amount of time working on this book, selling a book, it's worth at least $3. The royalties that you get from the retailers at a 99-cent are just abysmal and just, it's terrible. I honestly want, I want to print it on a t-shirt and give to every author and then never 99 cents because I feel like it's so important. Our work is worth more than 99 cents. The great thing about Shopify is you get paid within about 48 hours of the purchase. This happens with pre-orders as well. So you have to be very upfront with your customer. On my order page, I say, in big red letters, this is a pre-order. Your book will be shipped, and I, put the date on there so that there's no confusion. And then it also protects you from the serial read and returners. If that's been hitting you hard, and the retailers have that liberal return policy. Some of them are worse than others. I know you know which one I'm talking about. But that is just soul crushing when you have half of your income completely disappear after they've read every book in your series. It protects you from that. So Shopify is really great that way. Pricing is going to be something that you're going to want to think about. So again, I'm always a never 99 cents. You can choose to price your book whatever you want on your Shopify store. If you look in the fine print, all the retailers are going to tell you that they have to be the same price across whatever place it's purchased. But when they talk about price matching, they're not talking about stores yet. So that's one thing to think about. It might come into play later, but for now you can actually price your books lower. So for instance, on my books, my ebooks are $4.99 if you buy them direct, and they're $5.99 on all the other retailers, with the exception of my memoir, which is higher, just because I experimented with pricing and I have found that memoirs actually the customer that buys a memoir is used to spending more money. So, I just want to try to price them so that I can sell. It's a balancing act between selling the books and pricing them as high as possible. Because, in books, the margin is razor thin. It's, really tiny. And so when we're just starting out and we're not selling, thousands or hundreds of thousands of books, every dollar matters. And so I have been all over the place with my pricing. I've experimented so much in the last 3 years, and I started out high. And it's probably why I haven't grown like I wanted to. And I'm continuing to test it. But I just came back from vacation and I said, I'm tired of thinking about this. I'm just going to keep them at $4.99 on my website, $5.99 on the retailers, and then, let the chips fall where they may. So that's where I'm at, but test. Now, there's lots of ways you can make money from your Shopify website. There's obviously audiobooks. I've just kind of dipped my toe into the Google AI audiobooks. So I have some human narrated audiobooks, and those obviously have a higher price tag. But you can also download your AI audiobooks from Google, and then you can have them be delivered through BookFunnel. So that's just another product that people can take advantage of. And it actually opens up your books to people that maybe are blind. It just gives you a whole nother batch of readers that you can try to kind of pull in. You can also sell swag on your website and merch. So I've used the Printful app for merchandise, and that really coordinates beautifully. I don't have a lot of complaints about Printful, other than during the pandemic, it was really slow and they had a really hard time keeping in certain shirts and certain mugs and certain things. So I ended up, just to make my life simpler, I just completely took it off my website. I wasn't selling a ton of it. In my experience, until you have that following, you're not going to sell a lot of merch. And I really subscribe to the 80-20 rule. So I don't want to spend a ton of time working on something that's only going to, give me 20% of the income I want to make. So for me, merch is kind of I'll table it for now. I know I can do it. I put it off and we'll do that later. Another outside the box way that my Shopify store is making money is I have like a tip section. When it goes to the checkout, I have a little box that comes up and it says, help us get more books into the hands of more readers. And it basically just gives them the option to make any kind of donation that they want to. And typically that money's spent on advertising to get more books out there. But you'd be surprised how many people want to get behind an author and someone that they love and, really support them. So I would encourage trying that. The other option that I considered was Patreon or Patreon, however that's said. But it really comes down to time. Like, how much time does it take to create that platform and to create that exclusive content? And then, I have this full-time job, and then I'm also writing the books. And so it just becomes like, how many hats can you wear well? And so I just let that one go and decided to enable tips instead. And then another last way to sell direct is the Kickstarter. And that is something that I just had one completely fund last month for my latest women's fiction. And that was just a really fun process. It's a learning curve. And it's a way that you can maybe get more people that are interested in backing creators. And so I say, give it a shot, see what happens. Now, there's a lot of ways to attract visitors to your store. Social media, that's what you really need to find out where your readers spend their time. And this really varies by genre. So for me, it's Facebook. Women's fiction people are always on Facebook. My audience skews older. It's like 50 and up. So that's where I spend the most of my time, is on Facebook. And then you just, if you're a romance writer, it's TikTok. There's going to be a particular social media that works for you. You can give away your book on your Shopify store. That's very simple to do. It's really hard to get all the retailers to have that free book giveaway. And so it's easy to have a really low barrier to entry to get a new person to take a chance on your book. All right. And then I always say yes to every opportunity. So my catchphrase is be a Kanye. Not, don't be yanking the microphone out of anybody's hand to talk about yourself. But if someone asks you what you do, like when someone asks me that question, I never tell them that I work in marketing for an IT company. I tell them that I write travel memoirs and, women's fiction books. And it just really gets me excited and them excited. And I've gotten quite a few people that are willing to take a chance when they meet somebody in real life and then want to go check out their books. All right, so I have a blog on my Shopify store, and I call it the TMI. And it's just a way to, weekly, I get to connect with my readers and my people that are interested in the books I'm writing. I give away a weekly gift card, and that's something that is all done through Shopify. You can create a gift card that you just give away. And it gives them kind of a glimpse into my world. It's a little bit like, what am I reading? What shows am I watching on TV? Any big news that's coming out with the, with the new book I'm writing. It just gives people a kind of a glimpse into my world, which is really great. And I tell people want to know like who you are. They invest in your books because they like you. And so if you're not going to talk about your books, then nobody will. And so you have to like feel that fear and that, I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to tell them about it. You have to kind of get over that. And if you aren't going to talk about it, nobody will. And you have to be out there and willing to put yourself out there and be authentic. If you're a big dork like I am, then you be a big dork, and people respond to that. It just works. They want to know who you are, and that really ties them into you. So one question that I get a lot from people, I do have an extensive background in email marketing, and it is getting harder every year to get those emails delivered. Now, back in, I want to say like 2012, when I first started doing email marketing, so easy, like that was how social media and email marketing got as big as it did. And now, all the privacy laws are changing. That's why I'm a huge proponent of getting people to have their own Shopify store. It's the only place that you have total control over. It's the only place you can measure. It's the only place that you can, see, you can collect data. And who knows how long we're going to be able to do that. I have a sneaking suspicion, a few years from now, we're going to be kind of crowded out of that opportunity to collect data on readers. And so the best time to start and jump into the Shopify experience is now. And the best time actually was yesterday, but the second best time is right now. And you have to get started. It's again, a marathon, not a sprint. You have to get started and start, getting that really important information. So when someone says to me, how often should I send to my email list? A million years ago, this really big social media guru said something to me that stuck with me forever. And he said, until they buy or until they die. And I was like dying. So that just really stuck. And that is very true. What happens if people unsubscribe? Well, that's okay, because they're not my customer anyway. So don't be afraid to, if you have something of value or something that's entertaining, to send weekly to these people. They want to hear from you. If they don't, they'll just opt out. So until they buy or until they die. One really great thing that I've been able to do is you can take your Shopify blog and you can actually connect that to your Author Central profile on Amazon. And it's just another way for people to see a little bit deeper into who you are. It gives you more credibility. I talk about anything from, what I'm doing here to the latest book that I'm reading. It also is a feed for my TMI blog. And so it just, again, is another touch point for readers. They want to know who you are. They want to get into your life a little bit. And so it just makes it easy for them to do that. I'm a big fan, if you've noticed, the QR codes are back. Thank you to the pandemic and the Super Bowl for making that happen. But I use QR codes on my digital books, my physical books, and sometimes on social posts. It's the easiest way to get somebody to a page on your website. So you can do that. It actually has capability in Canva Pro to create a QR code. If you don't have Canva Pro, then you can actually, there are places online you can go where you can generate those and just use them, to get people where you want them to go. So the most important thing about Shopify is I'm all about the data, just like everyone else is. It's the digital gold that you have. It's that information. So knowing about your visitors is huge. And so when you're using Google Analytics, you want to make sure that you have those integrated with your Shopify store. So it can collect so much more information than the analytics you get in Shopify. So don't just use the analytics that are available in your store. Actually take those extra steps and, get your Google Analytics set up, learn the SEO best practices. The data isn't going to lie. So it's really telling when you're running an ad maybe to Facebook and you're getting all of these, you're getting all these visits, but it's nobody's looking at anything. So you can tell that you're hitting your ads are getting, maybe fake visitors or some of the bots that are happening. And so there are services that can actually protect you against those, like ClickCease. You can actually integrate those together with your Facebook ads to stop those type of visitors on your site. The one other thing that you need to think about is, so Google Analytics has been in existence forever, and you have that set up with your store, but you also want to, there's going to be a new kind of Google Analytics, it's GA4, that's going to be coming out July of 2023. And the best thing you can do right now is to go and set that up so it can start to collect data. It will start from day one. So you don't want to wait until it transfers over, you want to start now. And then Google Search Console is another tool that you're going to want to sign up for and get everything integrated, because that's feeding into the GA4 movement. It tells you all kinds of great things like average time that people spend on your page, so that's really critical data that you can look at to kind of see you can draw all kinds of conclusions from the data that you get on Google Analytics. And I'm an advocate. The privacy laws, like I said, are going to be getting harder and harder to deal with. So the sooner you start collecting data, the better. Okay, I'm getting to the end, I promise. So some of the things to keep it as easy and affordable as possible. So there are things that I believe as authors you spend money on. Professional editing, for me, that's always been from day one, absolute. Professional covers. I've been hard-headed and made some of my own, and they have always sucked with sales. So I have learned that lesson, and I don't make any of my covers anymore. The only things that I'm really paying for right now are my Canva Pro membership, and that's $120 annually. BookFunnel is $120 annually. And I think there might be a couple promo codes out there for that. So maybe make sure you look that before you do that. And then the basic store from Shopify is about $29 a month. So those are the hard costs, and those are the ones that to keep the price as low as possible. I'm always a believer in the business should make money before you spend money. And I have to say, as an author, I've been in other areas of business. This is a tough one. I mean, your margins are razor thin. It's a tough business to make money in. You have to get those numbers where you need them to be. So I am really, beyond the professional covers and the editing, I am really very carefully considering anything additional that I bring in and spend money on as an author. These are the things I think you shouldn't spend money on. So ad courses, it's so widespread. If you want, you can get all the information you need about running Facebook ads directly from Facebook for free. You don't need to buy a course from someone. If you have the wherewithal to sit through some videos and to read through some blog posts that Facebook has put together, it is the best resource. If you want to learn Google Analytics, all of that is free. You don't have to spend a penny on that. You can just put some time to it and you're good to go. Press releases. I did one of those. That was a huge waste of money. Bad lesson learned on that one. Kirkus reviews or any paid to review service. That is another just money suck. Amazon gift cards for giveaways. I think that's a terrible way. All you get, you attract those, freebie seekers. Blog tours are another one that used to be, from what I've heard, very successful and profitable. But since I've been in publishing, they have never really returned on investment at all. And paid newsletters for a paid book. I have learned that lesson too. So right now, the only thing that I do now is a paid newsletter for a free book. So free first in series still works, and that's what works great. You can set that book free on Shopify, and then you can, continue to advertise the others in the series or others if they're standalones. So the thing to think about is You know, you're excited to start your Shopify store. I'm excited for you, but you have to have you have to know going in, it's a long-term strategy. So you're going to be putting in lots of money and time, you know, to get all the pieces working together. And it can be overwhelming. I always tell people to wait to invest in tools when you're profitable. So for instance, there is an integration tool that will save me time when I get a little bit bigger that I have my eye on, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger on it yet. So that is something to think about. I always advocate to send readers to the store no matter what. So I use the QR code. So I use direct to my store on my ads. I never send them to Amazon because there's too many shiny things on Amazon that they can get distracted with. And I want them to be focused on my books and, you know, spend some time getting to know me as an author. So for me, it's always about sending them to the store, letting the data collect, analyzing the data, and adjusting accordingly. So it's very overwhelming. It has been very overwhelming for me as an author, learning all the moving parts of this thing. Like, there's so much to do as an author. And at first it was just, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And obviously I spun my wheels and made some bad choices. But I learned, and I'm continuing to plot my way to a better future. And that's what I want for you guys to do too. It's the old, you know, how do you eat an elephant? And one bite at a time. But I am an advocate for setting small, achievable goals. And I love a to-do list where I can like make the check or draw the line through it. That gives me a big rush of joy. That's always good. And I also have a revolving to-do list. And I have like my goal set up for the week, the weekend, the summer, and then longer term. And so all of my projects are in there. Now, if you sat down and you wrote down everything you needed to do to start your Shopify store, get it all integrated, get it ready to, you know, go live and sell books, it would probably shock you into doing nothing. So I'm not telling you to do that. Just what's the next step I need to take? What's the next thing I need to do? Or what are the next 2 or 3 things I need to do this week? And then just kind of tick them off a little at a time.
Okay, well, we appreciate you taking all your mistakes you made and helping educate us about how to not make those mistakes. In fact, that's pretty much my motto is I try to take all those lemons and make some lemonade and share it with other people. We do have a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get out of here. I've been like talking to a screen and I haven't been able to see your lovely faces. There we go.
One of the questions is but from Angela. She's asking if Shopify takes the place of a website, or you should use it in combination with your website. I know for my Weebly, I was just looking while she was talking, Weebly has a Shopify integration. So I already have a Weebly. That's where all my branding, all my author stuff is. So conceivably, if I wanted to do a Shopify, wouldn't then start a new Shopify and move all my stuff. But if you don't have a website, I think that is what she's saying. Why don't you?
Yeah. So there are some solutions I've heard that have Shopify buttons. If that's all that's available to you, I would not go that route. I would go the full Shopify store. So those are that's an important thing to find out. If it's just a button, it's not going to have the same functionality that the store has. But yes, if I was going to do one, it's going to be the Shopify store. And that's what I have currently. I bought all these domains, and all the ones that I had set up before that went to WordPress websites. Now I just redirect them to my Teal Butterfly Press. Or if it's a specific domain like the Scotland with a Stranger domain, it goes right to that book on my website.
And she has a WordPress. And I think what you're saying is it's better to get a Shopify. I
think it is personally. I mean, you want them to buy the book. That's the goal, right? We want them to buy the book. So let's send them to the store. You know, to me, it just makes sense. Okay. So, and you can do everything on Shopify that you currently are using WordPress for. You know, it has a really robust blogging feature, and it's definitely worth a look. Okay. It's so funny. You see, like I have had a WordPress blogs. I've had about 15 of them over the years since about 2002. And so my
blog is a WordPress and it links off of my Weebly site. And it's nice to keep as a blog because they have their own internal search engine optimization that goes to all the WordPress folks. And then so like other bloggers might see it or whatever. But I did not realize that Shopify had a blogging feature. Weebly also has a blogging feature, but I don't really use it like a blog as much.
Yeah, you can call it a blog, like, and this is something that I probably should point out. So if you go to my website, there's a reason or a section called books worth reading. So that's just where I review books in women's fiction or whatever genre I like to read. And I have, affiliate links that go to Amazon. There's all kinds of ways you can use a blog to put whatever information you want to share with your reader. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a blog. You don't have to get in that limited mindset that it has to be a blog. That's all it can do. You can do so much within that functionality of the blog.
The point of for those of you who are not techie, the point of the blog is that it's got refreshing material that comes to the top. So like if you have news, maybe you want to call it news, and maybe you're going to be going and presenting somewhere or having a signing somewhere, that information would be at the top of the feed and you could refresh it all the time. Whereas like a stagnant page is going to have like a template and it'll have things in it, whereas a blog is a little bit more nimble in its use, I guess is one way to put it. So blogs are important, even if you don't use them as a blog pages are important for things.
Totally agree. And make sure that you take that step on your Amazon profile to link those two together. So anytime you make a new post, it automatically refreshes, so if someone goes and looks me up on Amazon Central, they're going to see the post I just made today. It's going to immediately put it there instead of them having to go to my website, which obviously I want them to go there. But a lot of people have a mind block or don't want to leave the warm, fuzzy world of wherever they're at, whether it's, Facebook or Amazon or wherever they are, they have this kind of thing. And even Facebook's taken it a step further just recently. If you've noticed, if you click on anything that is not inside Facebook, it throws up this warning screen that says you are now leaving Facebook. And to me, that is like the devil, because they are controlling people to tell them, no, I don't want to leave Facebook. So you're going to see any post that you put on any page is going to have even more abysmal reach than it ever did. It's going even lower. And to me, I'm a little disgusted.
That's how Instagram has operated from the beginning. Instagram has never allowed hot links except for that one hot link. Now they've added the feature of if you do a story, you can add a link in the story using their sticker buttons. Other than that, you don't get a hot link. So you don't have to go outside of Instagram. And in the past, you were never allowed to have a hot link or go outside of Instagram. They want you in. It's very controlling in that way. And that's why you have to learn all these different platforms and how they function, or you need to hire somebody that does. There are plenty of PAs out there. In fact, we'll have a salon with a PA that will talk about some of the things that PAs do, or you can have, and some of them are quite affordable. And if you're just not like, I can do social media. It's just, something I've been doing for a long time. I do it in my muggle job. That's what I do. But if you just can't do it, that's okay. I mean, if you want to write and you want to write newsletters and spend your time doing other things, do that and try and make, when the first money you make, invest in getting somebody else to help you with that. So another question is Shopify free? Do you need to obtain domain name for each of your books?
They have a free version of Shopify, maybe it's like you get to try it for a month or something. And then they have a light version, which I want to say is $5 or something a month. But I was able to jump up into the $29 a month option pretty quickly. I would suggest trying to get it set up, at least maybe with your most important book that you're selling regularly on any of the other retailers. Just get started with it. You can always pause your store. I mean, there are options if you don't want to continue to be, paying that monthly fee, but it's definitely, it's user-friendly. It looks beautiful out of the gate. You don't have to fight to create the store. And for me, with that limited time that, all those hats you have to wear, that was the best way to go.
And no, you do not have to buy a domain for each book. That her suggestion is, and I know this is probably like at least intermediate level, getting all this stuff under all. This is like something you don't want to worry about until you get these other things done.
Yes.
But what she's saying is if she has this book, the Scotland book, and that has a nice sound to it, and it's her best-selling one, so she bought the domain. And then when any time she does an ad or markets that book, she uses that domain name, but that domain automatically takes you to her Shopify store, which is fine. It's totally okay to do that. So if you have this say you have a whole new series you're doing and you want to really sell that series and it's doing pretty good, buy the domain name for it and have it automatically linked to your website. Now again, this is stuff you'll want to think about. Come back and watch this after you do the other things.
Yes, for sure.
And then do something that's like next level.
Yeah.
And then Alexis asked, can you explain a bit about how you manage the pre-order process? That's a good question. I was going to ask about the pre-ordering too. Do you just keep a record of pre-orders? Is that also a book funnel thing that can work as well?
I don't know that book funnel will keep track of that per se. I think you have to use, so Active Campaign is the email software that I integrate with my store. And so you can actually tag someone in Active Campaign. So after they make the purchase, they get tagged, with the book name or whatever tag you assign it. And then it goes into kind of Active Campaign and just kind of sits there. If you don't want to go that route and pay that additional fee, which I am absolutely never an advocate for adding it, monthly fees on unless you're making real good money at this. So there's a way you can just kind of avoid that if you're not, if you're just getting started and you want to give this a go. In Shopify, it will keep track of any orders that are unfulfilled, the status of your order. So fulfilled, unfulfilled. And that's just how I started when I started my Shopify store. Is I would just leave those pre-orders unfulfilled. And then the money would continue to come in and go to my checking account. And, I was very clear with the purchasers, you're not going to get it for several months, and people were fine. People that buy direct are okay with that. If you let them know what's going on. And then when the book launched, then I was able to send those out immediately through BookFunnel, the ebooks, and then ship the paperbacks.
And this has the added advantage that you have the money already or exactly how many people have ordered, and you have the money to order your author copies.
Exactly. You have the money in your account automatically. You're the one that controls any kind of return policy. So I have a pretty hardcore return policy. Like if it's a digital good, it's just like a video game. You buy it, it's yours. And that's never been an issue for me. I don't want to get burned. So I usually have a pretty staunch return policy, but if you have ordered it in accident, I'll give you, another book, that type of thing. I mean, I'm not a Nazi, but, I like to keep that pretty tight.
So are you able to promote your Shopify store on, this is Angela asking, are you able to promote your Shopify store on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and TikTok without violating their terms of service?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't know that would apply to your store.
You're not,
maybe I'm not understanding.
You're not saying you're a representative of Shopify, if that's what you're asking. Angela, do you want to clarify?
Yeah, maybe I need a little more.
You'll have to unmute. Let me see if I can unmute you.
No, what I guess I was trying to say is, how like Twitter, you can go in and you can put your blog, link or whatever, but on Instagram, they don't really want you to put like a link to your blog, or like I work on Fiverr. They don't want you to put like your Fiverr link or, stuff like that. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out if you're on these other platforms and you have a Shopify, how do you get people on those other platforms to even know about your Shopify if you're not able to link it, or are you?
I think you're able to link it. I have never heard of that. I do have a little hint that I can share with you Instagram lovers. So like Heather was saying, you're only allowed that one link in your bio. So what I've done is on my Shopify store, I've created basically a page that I've used. So it's like tealbutterflypress.com/Instagram. And it takes them to a page that has links to everything that I often reference in my posts on Instagram. So if someone wants to, my newest book is When Ren Came Out. And so if someone wants to read that book or wants more information on it, it takes them right to that Shopify page, and then they can go to wherever they're most interested in. But you're basically, it's a small business. I don't see why that would violate any, of the rules of like Twitter, or I'm not as active on Twitter. So, maybe I'm talking out of my, out of pocket, but
I just started. So
basically your website.
Yeah, it's your store.
That's the platform that you're using to build your website. It's your storefront. So you're allowed to talk about your
it's like any business.
your storefront. When you get into the terms of service stuff, it's usually, they don't want you saying, I'm a representative of Spotify or of Shopify. And this is what because then you're talking on behalf of Shopify. But if you're using Shopify for your website, you can totally share as much if they want you to, because the more money you make, the better for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just learning all these social media platforms. I really don't know them at all. So I listen.
It's a lot.
And we'll do more salons on social media. Maybe we will even break them down by platform.
That's a good idea.
I've done overall ones before, but maybe we'll break them down by, especially Book Talk's really hot right now.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So let's see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Angela asks, I already answered that one about the shipping question. So Angela also asked, can you collect emails on Shopify as well?
Yes, you definitely can. So if you ever want to spend any time looking at my site, it's on my homepage. I have it loud and proud on very top above the fold, which is an important concept on a website, is you want to keep your most important information, what action you want them to take that doesn't require any scrolling. So I have enter to win a gift card from Teal Butterfly Press, and you put your email in there, goes into email subscribers on the back end of Shopify. So you have a collection of all of those. And then there are apps like Zapier and other ones that will integrate with your email provider. I think MailChimp might be integrated already with Shopify, so you won't have to jump through more hoops. I don't think it used to be. I don't know if it is now because I don't use it, but that might make it a little easier for you. But yes, you want to continue to grow that email subscriber list. That is your little real estate on the internet, and that's why you continually drive those traffic there. You want the data, you want the email addresses, you want to be able to reconnect with those readers again. And when you're spending money like to advertise books on Amazon and you send them to Amazon, you don't get any of that information. And that's key. That is the biggest key to being successful, is being able to retarget and remarket to those people that have visited.
Pamela asks, how user-friendly is it to set up a Shopify site?
I would say it's pretty user-friendly. I mean, if you are someone that, I wish I could share my screen. I can't set it up to do that today, but it's very intuitive. I would say that probably the hardest thing for most people is getting the graphics done, because that's what's going to really make your store look amazing, or it's, going to look like crap. So, the functionality, the buttons, everything is all going to work the same way. It's just getting that look that you want the store.
I think branding's one of the hardest.
Agreed.
Parts. I think branding because you also know you're married to it for a long time.
Forever, so almost.
It feels very final.
It is, because it's hard to change it later. Oh my God. It's torture.
I've done brand tweaks as I figured out what I want my brand to be. And so I've in the same color family, at least.
Yes.
And similar fonts, at least now, but it's taken me years to get here. I didn't
Absolutely.
write a book in 2015 and go, okay, I have all my branding fixed. Now,
I'm
some
good.
people are able to do that. Some people know exactly what their brand is and their coloring and their fonts and all that, but it has taken me a long time to get to where I am with my branding.
I don't think you're unusual at all. It does take a long time to get there.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And Angela asks also, if you've not finished writing your book yet, should you go ahead and set up your Shopify?
It depends. So if you're a person that, if this is your first project, you definitely don't want to set the precedent that you're not going to meet a deadline. So if you're a person that don't want to put it out there until you're sure, like don't start the pre-order process until you're sure you can, fulfill that deadline. But it's also a place where you can share the process. So you could have a page that has your cover if you have that ready.
Well, she says she wants an author website. So like, I guess what she's asking, and she can clarify if she wants to, what it sounds like she's asking is, would you want to go set up an author website and then set up a Shopify later?
I wouldn't.
Do you want to clarify the question?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, because I'm in the process of writing my book, but I also want to share the process of writing and, that kind of thing. And so I guess I'm looking at, do I go and I, do my author website or author blog or whatever and share the process there and then wait until the book is actually finished to then do the Shopify, or can I do everything from the Shopify?
You can do everything from Shopify, but it won't be a free platform. If it goes on for several months, obviously the minimum that you would be charged, well, if you went to Light, you could get it's $5, I think, or $29 for the monthly charge. But I would recommend doing that if you can afford that expense, because you could start blogging. You could set up a pre-order area, and if you had the cover designed ready, you could start that process coming soon. And then you could get your blog going and just talk about those things like, character naming and, just whatever you want your readers to know. Like if you're a fantasy writer, you could talk about the world you're building and just start to drum up excitement. You could also start collecting email addresses so that when you're ready to launch, you'd be the first one to hear about my new book. If you have a title, it's a long game. So the sooner you start, probably the better off you're going to be.
I always say you can't start advertising too early. You can't start with that marketing process too early. You can overpromise too early. Like, don't say this is going to be launched in October if you don't know you're going to launch it in October.
Yeah.
But you can start marketing now for a book that's not going to be launched for a year from now.
Exactly.
And that's totally legit.
Totally cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome. Readers do want to know that process. Like if they fall in love with your book, they're going to want to know, like, what you feed your dog and, all these weird random facts. That's what I share in my TMI. It's like always like some dumb thing that comes in my head, or a recipe for this, or, just they want to know kind of the person behind the books a little bit. I mean, you don't have to put all your stuff out there, but, just they want to see that personality. And that's what the blog gets an opportunity for you to do. And when you build that to that level, you're going to see people that are going to want to spend more money on your website. Like when I first started my Shopify store, I was deathly afraid of having to keep track of all these sales taxes. I wasn't as aware of the Tax Jar and some other apps you can use. And so I priced my books so freaking high, like $5 over what Amazon was going to charge, like $23 for a paperback. And people bought them because they were excited about, what I was talking about, the pictures I was sharing about the Scotland trip, what it was, just the whole thing, the whole buildup. They wanted to invest in it. And since then, like I've said, I've done a lot of testing on price points, and I started high and I'm like coming down a little more. Like I am not used to working in a business where the margins are so low. So I wanted to kind of figure out, where's that happy place where you're selling books, but you're not giving them away. So right. It's been a long journey, and I have made so many mistakes.
And it's so much work, as we all just learned here. Just the selling but your own work by itself, it's just that alone is a lot of work. That doesn't even count all the
Absolutely.
writing and the edit.
I know.
So thank you so much. We appreciate you taking your time today to give us all this wisdom that you've learned over the years. You really condensed a lot of wisdom from all those years into a very short period of time. Yes, we appreciate it. I do want to remind you to go check out her website and to check if you are thinking of doing a Shopify, but you don't want to do it all yourself. She has a package on there to help you set up your Shopify store if you're in a place that you're ready to do that. You can tell us where all the places we can find you, Ninya.
So my thought, when you're in social media, you want to be everywhere. And so that's why I repurpose all my content. But I'm on, primarily I'm on Facebook, and I have a reader group there called the Ninyas. And then I also have a presence on Instagram, and I'm starting to get a little more savvy with LinkedIn, which has been interesting because I do write nonfiction. There has been some really great opportunities that have come up from that. So if you're a nonfiction writer, maybe explore that social media, because until just recently, it was never really one I spent a lot of time in. But yeah, it's primarily Facebook, I think, because that's where my readers hang out. Like wherever your readers hang out, spend most of your time there. You know, TikTok is not where 40 to 60-year-old women, for the most part, are hanging out that want to read my book. So I don't spend a lot of time there.
Understood. And I'm author H.L. Brooks. Heather to the rest of you, it's H.L. Brooks to the readers. And I can be found on social media, just about most platforms, at H.L. Brooks Writes. And I just want to remind everybody that there are free tickets to be had for the Right Women Book Festival, which is coming in October. I would love it if you would get the link. I'm going to post it in here and share it on your social media and on your wherever people who love books are, or if you know people who love books, it would be great if you shared that. And that also the author interest form for any authors who wanted to participate this year but didn't get to. We have an author interest form for 2023. Next year is going to be a 2-day event. We're leveling up. We've done 4 years of 1 day. Well, we're about to have our 4th year. We're going into our 5th year next year, and it will be a 2-day event with an reader focused day along Saturday, and then a shorter Sunday that is author focused and networking focused. So that is what we'll be doing. And so it'd be great if anybody watching this, if you are an author who would like to participate next year, fill out that author interest form, and we will let you know as soon as registration goes up. It'll go up earlier than it has been in the previous 4 years. And I hope to see everybody at the Salon next month. I will be publishing the information about that. And Ninya is going to get us the names of all these great apps and some slides together that she has there that we weren't able to make work today. And we will put them in a post in the in our network group. And then this video will also be on YouTube. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm going to hang around and talk to Ninya for one more second, and then you guys have a lovely day.
Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck.
I'll stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Thank you.